So maybe you're feeling quite rejected, but you're determined to not let this break you down and really get to you. So, are you wondering how it is that a secure person would handle the avoidant discard without falling apart? It hurts, but you can absolutely handle this in a really healthy way. And without the knowledge that I'm going to share here with you today, you may find yourself instead moving down a path, thinking and feeling things that could even compromise your self worth or trust in the future of relationships overall. So, today we are going to talk specifically about how a secure person handles rejection and remains grounded in themselves so that they can rebound quickly in a healthy way in terms of how they feel and pave the way in the future for the right and healthy relationship to enter. So, if you're new to this channel, hello and welcome. I'm so glad you're here and that you stopped by. My name is Thais, and I've been working in the field of attachment styles and psychology and relationships and the subconscious mind for over a decade. And I'm really excited to be able to share all of this information here with you. So, there's a few things that secure people do differently when it comes to rejection, and especially sudden rejection from somebody who may be more emotionally unavailable or may suddenly pull the rug out from under you a little bit because their own wounds and fears are getting in the way of them being able to invest fully in another partnership. And if this happens, I think the first thing to really highlight before I even tell you the three things that secure people do differently, the first thing to really highlight is that truly, if this happens, if somebody like is investing in you and everything's going well, and then suddenly they run away from the relationship, it truly is not about you. One thing you want to understand, and that I'll talk about all the time on this channel, is that your conscious mind, everybody's conscious mind, which is sort of your logical, rational, analytical self, is responsible for 3 to 5% of all of your beliefs, thoughts, emotions, and actions. It is your subconscious mind that is responsible for 95 to 97%. And your subconscious mind is your habituated self, your habits, your patterns that you have. And this would include things like the patterns you bring into relationships. And unfortunately, for somebody who's an avoidant attachment style, they grow up fearing too much closeness because in their childhood, when they had a lot of closeness to somebody, it usually meant that they felt a sense of helplessness and rejection that led to shame. And they felt like they could never truly rely on somebody. And so what happens is as soon as they get close to somebody, no matter how perfect or amazing that person is, and sometimes it's even more accentuated by the fact that they think somebody's so amazing. If they are not willing to do the inner work to overcome their fears and they don't realize that their attachment style is at play or they don't know anything about attachment styles, then what often happens is as soon as a real attachment bond is formed with another person, it triggers all of those deep subconscious fears that they've been carrying from their own attachment trauma in childhood. And so all they know how to do to cope is to run away and to keep distance because they don't want to have to feel those things again that they felt growing up. And their subconscious mind, which is out of their conscious mind's awareness, it's not even this like analytical, premeditated decision a lot of the time for dismissive avoidance. They'll just jet out of the blue, out of self-preservation and protection from this sort of survival instinct in a sense that often leaves people feeling really confused and also wondering like, is it something that I did wrong? But that's the pain and the power of conditioning, is that if we don't realize that we have these patterns at play, then we won't realize that we there's another way to move through our relationships rather than just fall victim to these patterns over and over again. And a lot of dismissive avoidance, when they do start learning these things and do the work, can show up in really profound ways. But if somebody doesn't know about attachment styles, if they have no awareness about these patterns, then of course we're all the victim of our subconscious programming. And each attachment style has their own unique way that this shows up. Fearful avoidance will be really hot and cold and push and pull. Again, not even consciously realizing a lot of the time why that this is happening or that these are their patterns. I know when I was a fearful avoidant before I did this work in a lot of detail, I used to just think it was because of everybody else. I used to literally think that my hot and cold was because of other people in relationships until one day I sat down and I looked at myself and realized I was the common denominator and that, oh my goodness, I'm push and pull because I have this wounding inside and I want closeness, but I'm scared of it at the same time. And I'm all hyper vigilant about everything. And wow, I'm going to constantly relive or replay in my own attachment wounds my whole life unless I go inward and focus on cleaning those things up inside of me and inside of my own subconscious mind and my own conditioning. And there's a way to do that. I think people think far too often, like one of the biggest myths about your attachment style is like, oh, once you have an attachment style, you're stuck with it. No way. You know how you know? Just in really simple terms, you're not born with it. Okay. You're not born with an attachment style. Like it's conditioned into you through repetition and emotional experiences over time, because that's what fires and wires neural pathways. And we have neuroplasticity, we have neurogenesis. We can change our patterns at any point in time with a little bit of consistency and work. So that's what all the work is on this channel. It's about how to actually recondition our patterns, whether it's our behavioral patterns in life or our attachment style patterns or the ways we communicate or the wounds and fears that trigger us. I mean, we cover so much of that here, but I just want to lay that groundwork first, that if somebody jets out of the blue, before we even go into the 3 things that can help you rebound, I just wanted to let you know, if you were sitting here and you were watching this video and you felt like the rug was pulled out from underneath you, I know that's a painful experience. And it really isn't because of anything you did. It's not because you should have been better or you weren't good enough. It's because this is the pain of conditioning. This is when we carry these conditioned patterns and we don't know any better, they play out. And every attachment style has them, like I said, or dismissive avoidance often leave out of the blue. Fearful avoidance are very hot and cold nonstop and often are on the roller coaster relationship. And anxious attachment styles often self-abandon in relationships, thinking that, okay, if I just people please enough, I'll reel somebody in. But like we talk about on this channel all the time, you will never people please your way to winning someone over. That's not how relationships work. The only way that we can build a stable foundation of relationship and healthy relating is if you are able to truly communicate what you need, share that with somebody, have healthy boundaries, know how to self-soothe so that you can communicate healthily, and then vet to see, does somebody show up? And that's how we find out if we're compatible with somebody, because they're able and capable and willing to meet our needs, and vice versa, through honesty, through authentic, hey, these are my needs, and putting it all the cards on the table. If we're hiding ourselves, if we're scared to be rejected, so we don't say our needs and we push them down in self-silence, it will always just end up in us not getting the relationships that we want. So that happens for anxious and fearful avoidance both. And even dismissive avoidance or enmeshed dismissive avoidance can do this sometimes too. But okay, let me get into the 3 points of what secure people do differently, because I'm too far down the rabbit hole. So here's the first thing. When a secure person gets discarded out of the blue, one of the first things that they do is they're able to evaluate the situation and realize that if this person was going to leave like that, they weren't ready for the quality of relationship that the secure person was looking for. And the secure person can do this with healthy perspective, with compassion. Like a secure person can be like, wow, I really like this person. That's too bad. But obviously, if this is how they were going to leave all of a sudden without communicating what caused them to leave, or without relaying in transparency what their fears were or concerns were that caused them to leave, well, they weren't in a place to be ready for a healthy relationship. And so they weren't a fit for me either. And because they view rejection through that lens of not personalizing it, they're able to see it more clearly. This allows them to be able to move on in a much healthier way. And it doesn't mean that secure people are robots. It doesn't mean that they have no wounds and no feelings about this at all. It will hurt, it will sting, because they were used to, starting to get needs met through this person and building that bond and that connection. And so they'll suffer from that place of unmet needs, but they won't, number 2, storytell about it. They won't make it mean painful things about themselves. And that's what I mean by storytelling. If you're less familiar with this concept, what we do is when we have painful core wounds from past attachment relationships. So for example, let's say you grew up in a household where your parents were super critical, and maybe they meant well by it, right? Maybe they were like, where's your A plus? You only got an A or an A minus, and they gave you a hard time. And maybe they just thought they were bettering you. But maybe as a little kid, you were sensitive to that and you felt like, oh, I'm never enough. And so then what happens is, as we repeat those experiences, we store them. And when we store things this way, we start to store our identity this way. We start to perceive ourselves through the lens of how other people treat us, especially your parents and caregivers. So over time, you start to think, okay, I'm just not good enough. No matter what I do, I'm not good enough. And then when we store these ideas about ourselves, they become core wounds. They become attachment wounds. They're one and the same. And the analogy I often give that I think just paints the clearest picture of this is, if you're in a forest and you see a bear and you run away from the bear, and then you're safe, thank goodness. But then the next day you have to go back into the same forest or woods where you saw the bear the day before. What happens? You project onto everything the likelihood of the bear being there. You're like, oh my God, is the bear going to be here? Is it there? Is the bear here? And you'll see this in your own attachment wounds around things like, if you were betrayed growing up, oh my gosh, who's going to betray me? Are they lying? Can I trust them? Suspicion will show up, right? It's your mind trying to protect you from the bear. But it's your mind in this case trying to protect you from reliving old wounds. If it's abandonment, oh my gosh, are they going to abandon me? The conversations change, the patterns change. Are they going to abandon me? Do they think I'm not good enough? Oh my God, did I do not do this well enough or that well enough? So what happens is when we have these pre-existing core wounds, we project them onto situations thinking we're protecting ourselves as if it was a bear in the woods, but we really diminish our self-esteem accordingly. Secure people have less core wounds because they have less attachment trauma. And so they don't jump to adding insult to injury, because when somebody already discards you, your needs aren't met. You were building a bond with them. Those needs are stripped away and it's going to hurt. But when you then tell a story around it and you're like, oh, it's because I wasn't good enough, or it's all my fault, or everybody's going to abandon me because this is what always happens to me, or I'm unlovable or unworthy. Well, now you just make it so much more painful. Okay. So secure people see the lack of compatibility because of the lack of ability for the other person to communicate. And they actually realize, hey, this person wasn't ready for what I was looking for. And they don't storytell around it, is point number 2. I have an important point number 3, but before I dive in here, I want to let you know that if you are recently going through this firsthand, you can check out our How to Heal from a Breakup course. Even if it was like a situationship or just dating and it's stinging right now, you can check it out fully for free for a limited time. I'll put the link down below. The link is actually to our whole personal development school membership, which means you can check out that course for free and all other ones within that free period. And you'll have more than enough time to get through at least one, if not multiple courses. And my hope, and the reason why I do this, is that if you are in a place where you can only afford to or go through one course for that period of time, okay, great. Then you have that extra resource and it can support you on your journey. And if you're like, wow, this helped me so much and I want to dig into other areas of healing, then hopefully you'll join me and stick around, because we have like daily support groups in there and I'm in there 3 days a week. You can come in and ask me questions and there's so much support if you find that this is meaningful to you. This is only available for a limited time and this is something we do literally once a year for Black Friday. So take advantage now while you can. And the How to Heal from a Breakup course is literally designed to take that sting out of the breakup. If you're stinging and you're reeling and you're having a hard time focusing, I promise you, if you sit down and do the work on it, it will take so much of the sting out of it, of the breakup, of the process that you're going through in such a shorter period of time. Because by really going through this, you'll realize, oh, these are the reasons I'm stinging. These are the reasons that I'm grieving. It will help you find your stories, your unmet needs, work through those things really efficiently, and just heal that time that you would otherwise spend reeling from a breakup in such a shorter window. So I'm going to go to point number 3 here of what secure people do differently when it comes to the avoidant discard. But the third major piece here that you want to check in with is they know how to get their needs met through other healthy sources. So secure people, when they go through a sudden discard, if this ever happens to them, they know, oh my gosh, this hurts. This is what I'm needing from my community, from people around me. This is what I'm needing from myself, whether it's like self-care rituals and activities. And they know how to move towards those needs with vulnerability, with self-compassion, without judgment towards themselves for going through this. And so they immediately know how to set up healthy routines. They'll be like, wow, this is hurtful. I'm going to double down on my self-care. And that could be anything from like a bubble bath to a gym routine to anything that's going to cause them to feel like, hey, I'm showing up to pour into myself, to nurture myself. They know how to vulnerably communicate specifically what they need to other people. And this is what I mean by specifically. There's a big difference between going to somebody and being like, I'm in pain, this person hurt me, versus saying, I'm in pain, this is what happened. I could use some reassurance, or I could use some company in the evenings once or twice a week, or I could use some humor and somebody to make light of things and help me laugh at this, or laugh at other things that take me away from feeling like I'm soaking in the sadness here. And so they know how to explicitly communicate what they're needing because they're in touch with their own inner needs and inner world, which allows them to then get those needs met much faster and then heal that time that they would otherwise spend soaking in that hurt and frustration for a longer period of time if they weren't clear and explicit about their needs. So those are 3 really important things that securely attached individuals do differently. I'm hoping that you can take away the key things that you see that you're not doing, and that can really help you and support you on your journey. And again, if you want to go a little bit deeper, I will put the link to the free trial to that course and all other PDS courses down below. I hope this was helpful for you. If you have questions about this in further detail, let me know in the comments. And if this was helpful or supportive to somebody in your life, please share it with them. Please like the video. And I hope you subscribe and stick around. Thank you so much for watching.